Hello, beloved friends, neighbors, and acquaintances.
Cut
All right, here we go.
to intro, take two.
All right, here we go. What are we talking about? Oh, no, I got it. All right, here we go. Hello, and welcome to the Common Sense Gospel. I'm Danny Simmons.
And I'm Kurt Norbert.
And we have just stepped into Season 7, and we are so glad to have you with us today. We're looking at the book of Proverbs in Season 7 and the many truths that come from the book. This first title for the Season 7 theme is Proverbial Wisdom. And so we want to talk about the book of Proverbs, how wisdom is laid out, the approach that mostly Solomon uses to deliver these wise sayings, and then all that he connects to that to show us how it's used, how it's utilized, and what to guard ourselves against. Because the reality is, for every single one of us, as we talk to you now, we all often feel a strong pull in our spirit between what's easy and what is right, between the fast answer and the patient, thoughtful, insightful answer that we actually need. Proverbs does an excellent job of considering them both and where they take us, comparing the easy thing to do versus the right thing to do. This book is always encouraging us to pursue the very thing that is profoundly better for us every single time. It is wisdom, and it is the wisdom of God, I would say more importantly. And so let me just start with a verse, Kurt. We'll go to Proverbs 1 and verse 7. It says, "The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and instruction." There's three major words in this verse to me, and that is knowledge, wisdom, and instruction. And you tie that to the fear of the Lord. It is the beginning of these things, knowledge, wisdom, and instruction. And to fear God, we'll talk about it more as we move through this, but it's not a terrifying, I can't move, I'm so scared kind of a fear, though it could be if I'm sinning against God. But it's reverence, it's awe, it's respect, it's amazement that God and all of his power, all of his might, and his eternal wisdom has given us these things that I should fear him. He knows everything from its beginning to its end, and he's the only one to go to for the answers that will truly help us because we know he loves us. And so Proverbs, it's an Old Testament book, but it is a phenomenal book to read, I believe, every day.
Yeah, and in fact, it's easy to do that. Part of my reading schedule in going through Psalms and Proverbs, you have 31 chapters in Proverbs. Just read a chapter a day, and you're reading through Proverbs every month.
That's
awesome.
So
12 times a year, you are getting a nice, healthy helping of wisdom that comes from God. And of course, that is the ultimate source. We know that we're getting that wisdom. It's from a source we can trust, and we can go by that. But it's important, as you noted in verse 7, there are some distinctions there. Instruction, knowledge, and wisdom. And a lot of times we think, well, knowledge and wisdom, that's pretty much the same thing, isn't it? And it is not. Mm-hmm. Both knowledge and wisdom come through instruction. So that's the starting point, and that's, as we're going to see, that's what Proverbs is all about. It is a book of instruction on how to apply your knowledge. And that's the distinction between knowledge and wisdom. Knowledge is just having the facts. You know what this teaches or what you're supposed to do. Wisdom is the correct practical application of that knowledge. So you can be very knowledgeable and yet completely unwise. And Paul talks about that in his letter to the Corinthians, 1 Corinthians, that knowledge puffs up. You've got the wise of the world, so there's a level of wisdom there, but it's, in that case, it's wisdom that's not based on the proper knowledge. So you have to have those two components, correct knowledge, and then the right wisdom that you've been instructed about to apply that knowledge to practical things in life, the daily challenges that we come up against. And so that's what Proverbs is all about, which makes it completely relevant for today. Proverbs, interestingly, is only quoted one time in the New Testament. 1 Peter chapter 2 at verse 22, he likens the person who has come to know about God and has obeyed the gospel, been cleansed of their sins, but then forsakes God and goes back into the world. He says that's like a pig wallowing in the mire, or, quoting from Proverbs 26:11, a dog turning to its own vomit, which is a really gross picture. But that's what it's like if you know better and you go back to sin. So there you have knowledge. Here's sin, but now you're not correctly applying that knowledge. You're making an unwise choice by going back to those sins you were cleansed from. In that case, you are like a dog going and turning around and eating its own vomit.
Yeah. He says what you've done is according to the true proverb.
Yeah, that is. So he is quoting Proverbs 26:11, which shows us then that 800 years later, Solomon wrote these Proverbs. By the time of Peter, this is still a relevant truth. This illustrates, first of all, how disgusting sin is, to turn back to it. You might take a look at a dog that turns around and eats what it just barfed up. That's what it's like if you're going back into sin.
Yeah.
It's putrid. It's an ugly thing.
It
because
really
sin
happens.
is ugly.
And it really happens. I've seen it happen, and it is truly disgusting. And it happens on smaller scales too. Obviously, Peter's dealing with the highest level that this can be done. When you have the wisdom of God given to you to turn back to the world, which is empty and vain and passing away, you've gone back to the filth that you were brought out of, which also goes to the washing of the swine who goes back into the mire. It's the same picture. Mm-hmm. You've been cleansed and washed, and you run back to the mud and wallow in it. And I think for parents, we say that to our kids all the time. You know better. I know you know better. We brought you up and taught you your entire life. This is not how you do this. And why have you chosen this path? Why are you doing it this way? It's that same feeling that we're watching our kid run into something that we know the result of it. And we're saying, please be on guard. Please don't do that. And that really is the proverbial wisdom that we're considering now. These instructions are not just things to be read and go, oh, that was pretty neat. I can see where that's true. And I've seen a dog do that. That's okay, fine. There's a spiritual, as you said, practical application for myself. If I choose to do it, no matter how smart I think I am, then I've simply fulfilled a proverb, as you said, written 800 years before Peter, written almost 3,000 years before we got here. The proverb is still true.
Yeah.
Perfectly true.
Wisdom, pure wisdom that comes from God doesn't change. And contrary to what a lot of people want to proclaim, man doesn't change. We still face the same challenges with relationships and how to handle money and how I talk to people and business situations and dealing with women, proper relationships within marriage. Those don't change. And Proverbs addresses all of those. In fact, that is why we can turn to Proverbs. Just in the beginning of the book, and I love the opening chapters, the first 8 chapters of Proverbs is designed to set the book up. But when you start in verse 2 and go down to verse 6, it gives us the reason why the book of Proverbs was written by the wisest person who ever lived under the inspiration of the Holy Spirit. So here's the great source of wisdom. Here's the purpose, beginning in verse 2, to know wisdom and instruction, to perceive the words of understanding, to receive the instruction of wisdom, justice, judgment, and equity, all important things that don't change. People still want these today. To give prudence to the simple, to the young man, knowledge and discretion. A wise man will hear and increase learning, and a man of understanding will attain wise counsel, to understand a proverb and an enigma, the words of the wise and their riddles. So what the book is saying is this is a book of instruction. As he says, we need to know, so there's the knowledge, wisdom and instruction. Okay, so I need to be instructed into what I need to know. And then I need to be instructed on how to use that knowledge correctly for living a proper life. And that's what wisdom is. And Solomon stands as a great example for that. Wisdom does not necessarily mean infallibility, just as a clear understanding of Scripture didn't mean the apostles were infallible. Because Peter knew that God wanted the Gentiles to be saved. He was the one God had given a vision to and told, don't call unclean what I have cleansed. Don't call it common.
He told them repeatedly.
3 times in a vision, and then told Peter, go and preach to this Gentile. So Peter was the first one. Well, what happens a few years later? He's in Galatia, and he starts favoring the Jews over the Gentiles, and Paul had to call him out on it. So Peter knew, but under the pressures of the situation or whatever, he made an unwise choice on how to apply that knowledge.
Nice.
And so did Solomon. Here's the wisest man in the world that wrote for us all of this wisdom, but we all, as with Solomon, have the choice of how to apply that wisdom, what to do with it. He did not apply it correctly. We're told that he led Israel into idolatry because he listened to his multiple wives who wanted to worship the gods of the nations they'd come from. And under the pressure, and because he cared for them, whatever his rationale was, he allowed them to do that, and then he got dragged into it. So he knew better. He knew what idolatry was. He knew the will of God on that. He was wise about it. God had given him more wisdom than any other man. And yet he applied it improperly, because that's the choice we have.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to be open to instruction so that we know, and so that we can learn what wisdom is. What do I do with this knowledge? But then part of wisdom is applying it, exercising that wisdom correctly.
Yeah.
And that's what the book of Proverbs is all about. It gives us wisdom. It gives us, here's how you can practically apply, or you can apply the knowledge that you have about this practical situation wisely.
Exactly.
Here's how to make the right choice.
Yeah, you're right. Solomon demands, as we look at him, the wisest man who ever lived, yes, he's wise. We see that evidence in the Bible, and yet he shows us that free will is never interfered with, and the carnal nature of all of us has some real powerful impact on us in our daily lives, the decisions we make, and what we choose to do. If we're not careful, we can quickly walk away from the scriptural knowledge we have. We know the Bible class answer is, I always say that all the time. We know the answer in Bible class. I'll raise my hand. I can quote the verse. Am I doing it? That's where wisdom begins to take heart and take root in my life, because I'm walking in that and trusting in the Lord. I got to say to you, I'm still hung up on something you said a little while ago. I think several minutes ago, you said that Proverbs helps us to be wise when we're talking to women. I just thought, man, why didn't somebody tell me that 30 years ago? Talking to women, it's in here. And I think, yes, it's absolutely in here.
Yeah.
Proverbs talks to us about how to talk to women, how to talk to children,
Yes.
how to speak to adults who are older than us, and how to speak to men. And it's all fleshed out even further. How to talk to a king. When you're in the presence of the king, Proverb talks in great detail about that. Anyone who's in authority, how do you handle that? How do you speak? Should you speak at all? Proverbs deals with that. How to talk to friends, how to talk to enemies. A soft answer turneth away wrath.
Yep.
How to speak to your neighbors, right? It's all in Proverbs. So when you said how to speak to women, I thought, man, that's pure gold right there, Kurt. But then I just realized that it's everyone that we interact with. There is a proverb about that. And sometimes it's not how should I speak to them, but sometimes the proverbs are given to us where the way you start to talk to me, that I can pick up on how wise you are, because there's a proverb that talks about the mouth of a fool. I'm not calling you a fool, but the mouth of a fool spews forth foolishness.
Yes.
So if you're a rah, 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 I know everything, you have to listen to me. At some point, I'm going to go, hey, there's a proverb about you, and it ain't good.
Yeah.
Right? So the practical wisdom is not just here's what I should do and here's what I should be, although that is there. But it's also looking around at the people we spend time with and being able to evaluate, should I even be with this person?
And that deals with two topics in Proverbs: our speech and our relationships. Our relationships are affected seriously, as James points out in his letter, by the way we use our tongue. And so Proverbs has a lot to say about that, which again makes it timeless. The way I talk to people and the effect it has on them and our relationship doesn't change with time. It doesn't matter we live in a high-tech, AI-driven age full of computers and whatever else that have made us so advanced over the people of the past. We are still people dealing with the same issues of life.
Yeah.
And so the wisdom that Proverbs can impart to us still applies to everything. And I love the way, as I mentioned, the first 8 chapters, how Proverbs pictures the importance of wisdom and the competition that we have against obtaining wisdom, in that wisdom is personified. It's described as a woman who is inviting anyone who will hear her. She's out in the street saying, "Come to my feast that I have prepared," and basically associate with wisdom. So wisdom is pictured as a woman who is extolled in her virtue and what she's trying to attract us to. It's not her, but it's what she has to offer in the giving of wisdom. In contrast to that, there's another woman who's also giving an invitation to everyone that will hear. She says, "I've prepared my feast. Come and have and feast with me." But as Proverbs points out, she is a snare to those people, and her ways lead to death. She is the adulteress. She invites the individual to ignore wisdom, to go by what you feel, your lusts, and act that way, behave, make your choices based on that. That is destructive, as wisdom consistently points out. It's better to listen to the other woman's invitation, because she will show us how to make the right choices in life.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got 2 women, both are offering a feast. One feast is going to destroy you. The other is going to show you the way of life. And it, again, as we've talked about, it is up to you and me to make our choices as to which one we're going to listen to, which feast to attend.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful picture.
It is. We're going to cover that in this season, actually. The 2 women and the 2 invitations that are given. I'm excited about that one for sure. There's just a number of Proverbs that deal with wisdom, and I just want to read one to you. Proverbs 3:13 says, "Blessed are those who find wisdom, those who gain understanding." And I think we should notice that it's not just about having wisdom, it's about finding it and gaining it. And that really implies a journey, a process, and a reward at the end. That some of these things are, as we apply them, we are evaluating what direction that took us, how that turned out, did it benefit us? And again, looking to others who've done the same things, that we don't have to run every test on our own. Some people have already done this stuff. There's nothing new under the sun. So I can look to someone else as an example to say, well, he chose this path before me. How is he doing 10 years later, or whatever the case may be? That wisdom is found there. And I like that idea that it's those who gain understanding. It's an effort that is ongoing.
Again, you cannot overstate the practicality and the relevance, the application that Proverbs has for us. There's so much to learn. And like you said, I'm excited to be going through and looking at Proverbs topically. A lot of people struggle with Proverbs, and it's something I face because I like to look at a book and break down its structure, break down its themes, what it's talking about, how it addresses those themes and presents them. But you can't go to Proverbs and say, okay, right now I'm dealing with how I should talk to people. So where's the section in Proverbs that talks about speech? Well, Proverbs it is not designed that way.
No.
I've heard a couple of descriptions of Proverbs that I really like. One is that it's like a bunch of small pictures crowded together on the walls of a large art gallery.
Mm.
And so you have to go look at the different pictures to get whatever it is that you might be looking for. And that's how Proverbs is. You can't go to the chapter on speech. Those little gems, those pearls of wisdom on how we use our tongue are scattered throughout the book. There are helpful resources, though, where people have already done that. They've broken down Proverbs topically, and they'll say the tongue, and they'll give you all the Proverbs that talk about how people use their tongues, the wise way to speak to others, in contrast to the fool who doesn't know how to speak to people and just shows that he's a fool. But that's how we're going to approach it. We're going to look at things topically and just look at some of the various Proverbs that address that topic. And what that does is it kind of gives you a whole picture. It's, again, another description I heard concerning Proverbs that I like is that a Proverb's a short statement based on long experience.
Yeah.
Like you talked about. We're
Yeah.
looking at the experiences of other people, what Solomon had to say about his experiences. These are things that he has come to understand based on what he's learned that he wants to impart to his children. Mm-hmm. Listen to wisdom, my son, seek wisdom. And I believe it's because of Solomon's instruction from David, his father, that when God said, name something and I'll give it to you, he chose wisdom instead of riches, long life,
Fame,
the heads of his enemies, fame, and all that other stuff. Because David had told Solomon, seek wisdom above all things. Get wisdom. Get understanding. Solomon took that to heart, so he knew what to ask for when God said, ask for a gift. I'll give it to you. It's what I'm here for right now. Well, my father told me to seek wisdom. And so Solomon told God, here am I, ruling over your great people. How can I rightly judge them without wisdom?
Exactly.
And so God said, it's granted to you. You
Yeah.
have asked wisely.
Exactly. He showed wisdom in what he asked for.
It was a wise response, and God abundantly granted it. So, based on that wisdom, we see a lot of contrasts in the book of Proverbs. It will present God versus man. Who is God? Who is man? What are we in relationship to God? We see contrast between time, our physical time in our universe, versus eternity. Our decisions affect that. We see the contrast between truth and falsehood consistently through Proverbs. The contrast of wealth and poverty, what to do with each, how to address each situation. Purity and impurity, justice and injustice, big topic these days. Everyone's crying out for justice without really understanding what it is. They need wisdom on that based on knowledge. Or pleasure and misery, that is also addressed because we can experience both. So how do I deal with that in life? Proverbs will tell us. And another thing we get too is Proverbs will describe for us the evil person. Proverbs uses terms like talebearer, a whisperer, a backbiter, a false boaster. Guy's always bragging by himself, and it's a bunch of baloney. You've got the speculator, you've got the loudmouth fool. These are all individuals who are unwise, and we should not be following them. And they are used to contrast between what real wisdom is.
Wow. Just hearing you say that really shows me how relevant this book is right now. Be careful of he who bats the eyes and clicks his feet, sending signals to those that he's in cahoots with. You be careful with people like that. Be careful with someone who says, you're the one I've been looking for. You're the one. You're the answer to it all. That just plays to our own pride and the way we feel about ourselves. And Solomon says it's a trick. Be careful when you hear that. It's someone is leading you in a way that they should not be leading you. So there's just so many great topics in this that we're going to cover, and I'm so thankful for that. With wisdom and the idea of wisdom, I'll give you another one. Proverbs 8:11 helps us to just settle down and know what truly matters. Proverbs 8:11 says, "Wisdom is more precious than rubies, and nothing you desire can compare with her." There's that really simple, brief saying, and yet it is deep.
It's profound.
It is so deep and so true. More precious than rubies, than things that are expensive. And that's what we chase after. Wisdom is greater than that. Nothing you desire. That leaves it to their own imagination and what they desire. There's nothing you desire that can compare with wisdom, as we've discussed it. To have knowledge, to rightly apply it, to attain that is the greatest. Solomon will tell his son, buy the truth and do not sell it ever. Take possession of it and don't ever hand it over, no matter what's offered for it, because it's the greatest guide you'll ever have in your life. I think in the first 4 chapters, Solomon says, my son, 4 or 5 times. Yes. He says, my children a couple of times too. So you really have this, please hear what I'm saying. I've already walked down this road. That's what parents do for their kids. My son, hear my words. This is how this is going to turn out. Not because I'm a genius, but because I've been down this path. I know where it leads. I know what will come from it. I know how many choices you have ultimately. And so we can really help our children. And that is the very picture that is continually painted as you work through Proverbs. So I can appreciate that too. I like that the most beautiful ambitions, the best plans we can possibly lay, they all pale in comparison to what God has freely given to us. Godly insight is better than anything you and I can come up with.
Well, that's part of the word, what God has given us in the word. David said in the Psalms that your word is a lamp to my feet and a light unto my path.
Yeah.
We don't know which way to go in our life. Without God, we are walking in darkness. We're left to our own devices, and as arrogant as we might think and as wise as we might think that we are, we're going to make choices based on the flesh if we're not mindful of spiritual things. And right off the bat, that's an unwise selection. We're going to go wrong. But God knew that his people would need to be reminded again and again about how to think, how to speak, how to act. And so he inspired this collection of pearls of wisdom. And if you're a child of God especially, you cannot afford to neglect its counsel.
No, you can't, and you shouldn't. The Lord gives wisdom. From his mouth come knowledge and understanding, Proverbs 2:6, which is what you just said about that God has already given this wisdom to us and we should be taking hold of it. This tells us that wisdom is not created in a lab. It's not manufactured. Wisdom is revealed. And I think it's chapter 8, isn't it, where wisdom speaks through the entire chapter. From the beginning, I was with God, and I was here before the foundations were laid. I was here before the mountains were pulled up, and the skies were created over the face of the earth. Wisdom says to us, I was there. And so the cry from wisdom is, hear the words that I have for you. Because again, if she was there from the beginning of it all, then she knows it all. And she is freely offering what we must know to be blessed in our lives. And it's funny how people, even you and I sometimes go, yeah, but I got this thing I'm doing.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
I have a little bit of a wiser approach than you do.
Yeah, you don't know my situation.
But of course, that's what those points that you just made about Proverbs are showing us. The source of all wisdom is God.
Exactly.
And so when he began to act in creating all things, wisdom was there. Wisdom was with God. It is part of his character. He is all wise. And it's by his wisdom and his power that all things were created. That's what Psalm 19 tells us. When we look at the created universe, we see the examples, the proof of his wisdom and his power. How wonderfully he put all things together. That's his wisdom. He knew what he was doing, and he applied it correctly. And then it was the power of his word that brought it all to come to pass. So that personification of wisdom as a woman, and she was with God in the beginning. Yes, because God is wisdom. So it was there just as his power was.
Yeah.
And then you just go from there. Since wisdom was there at the beginning, wisdom's always been around, and therefore wisdom can address everything.
That's right.
And so that's where we need to look if we want to find the answers.
Yeah, that's so good. I think for me, just to give you one last proverb that I have, and is, as it pertains to wisdom, is Proverbs 19:8. The one who gets wisdom loves life. The one who cherishes understanding will soon prosper. The one who gets wisdom will love life. Yeah, I think again about just telling our children or trying to counsel someone who's about to step into maybe a new job, that they're coming in blind, and there's someone who has the wisdom and the know-how, the understanding of all the workings of that particular job. They say, here's what's going to preserve you. You know, as you step into this, remember these three things. Well, because of the source, again, someone who knows, and this ultimately being God, because of the source, if this person follows that, they will be preserved and they will be blessed and they will be productive, because those fundamental truths, which won't change because the parameters are still the same, if they hold to that, whether they understand all of it or not, they will be blessed in that. I love that picture because it takes some faith, doesn't it? The confidence in the source, and to say, well, the Lord has said this, and so I'm doing it this way, even though it doesn't make sense to me now. That is wisdom. It does preserve and prolong. It's not prosperity in a shallow sense, which is usually what we'll settle for that every time. It's fulfillment in working through that and doing it the right way. It's flourishing in the things that actually last. To be proud of something that you've done, to look back on it and to take pride in it because from day one you did it right. And you had honor and integrity in the way that you approached this task, the way that you saw it through to its end. All of that has a reward that I can't explain. Because I've definitely tried those things both ways. I've tried to get things done quickly because I didn't care a whole lot. Someone's asking me to do it. I'm like, whatever, I'll just, as quick as I can get this done. That never goes well. I'm not proud of it. I can't answer for why it didn't go well. And I don't want to answer for it, But again, to have someone coach me and to listen attentively because I trust them, I know they're right, and I've seen them be successful in it, that I would step into it with some confidence that I know how. I've been told what to look out for, what to do, and how to do it. We're already stepping into it with more confidence than we would have on our own in most cases, So there's so many protections in this that I think we've overlooked or don't want to consider. They're all found in this book.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to spending this next quarter learning from Proverbs. We can read it over and over, but like Peter said, though you know these things, I'm going to remind you of them. I need course corrections as I go through daily life. I need to be reminded, this is what God said about that through Solomon and the Holy Spirit. So since I trust God as the source, the perfect source of wisdom, I can go by that, and I'll be okay.
And you know what that'll be to you? It'll be a graceful ornament on your head and chains about your neck.
Yeah.
That's what Proverbs tells his son.
Yeah, that's a pretty picture, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Someone, again, beautiful, standing up strong, being proud of who you are. Yeah. All of that. It's not empty. It's real. So we're going to have a good time going through this. We have Bible trivia for each other.
We do.
I know you told me you had them, so we're just going to jump right into it. What do you have for me and for everyone else who wants me to do well in this trivia?
Yes, they do, Danny.
Trivia, sweet trivia.
My first question for you and our listeners today is, who was the first Old Testament woman to have twins?
I'm going to say Rebecca.
And that's the one.
Isaac
In fact,
and Rebecca.
I think she's the only one who had twins, if I remember right.
Through all the Old Testament?
Yeah, off the top of my head, and I can certainly be corrected. But yeah, Genesis 25:24, she gave birth to twins who had struggled in her womb.
I think Perez and his brother were born at the same. I can't remember the other brother's name because Perez is the line of Christ. But we can look into that, can't we?
Yeah.
Because we don't know the answer right now.
Verify what I just said. I could be wrong.
It's funny, too, because she says, after praying for a child and now being pregnant, she says, if I'm with child, then why am I thus? Why is this feel so awful?
They're duking it out and they're growing inside
The
me.
Lord speaks to her.
Yeah. Two nations are in your womb.
That is amazing for Rebecca. Man.
Which then Paul uses to illustrate God's sovereign choice.
That's right. Something's already happening there that we need to take note of. Okay, question number 1 for Kurt. Number 2 for everyone else who is gladly going through this with us. What did Pharaoh change Joseph's name to? He gives him an Egyptian name.
Oh, my.
I have a clue for you.
I don't speak Egyptian, so I don't recall. I don't know.
Starts with a Z.
Zeb? I don't know.
That was a shorter version of his name.
I can't even answer that one.
Zaph? It's a long, stretched out.
I know.
It's not helping you?
It's a typical Egyptian phrase name.
Yeah, it's Zaphanath Paneah.
Thank you.
Okay, he's
Of
coming
course,
to you.
I run into people who name that all the time. So
Yeah, I
should
know a
have
guy
known.
at the grocery store who Zaph, old Zaffy,
Yeah, we call him Zaph. Yeah.
or Zeb, as you said.
No, I'm total blank on that one.
The answer is found in Genesis 41:45, Zaphnath Paneah.
Okay. I'll remember that important Bible trivia. That's what it is.
And
It's
I'll
a
give
trivia
you,
question.
I'll give you an easy one next. I promise you, it's going to
Thank
be
you.
easy. We're going to have
Don't
some
want
fun.
You were talking about being wise and being a fool. Don't make me look so foolish.
No, sir. This next one's going to be a piece of
Okay.
cake.
Well, here's my second first then on our third question of the day. Who was the first Old Testament patriarch to go to Egypt because of a famine in his land?
Abraham.
That would be Abraham. That's right. Genesis
Yeah.
chapter 12 at verse 10. And he got himself into trouble when he went down there. But yes, he started that typical response of when there was a famine in the land of Canaan, then they would turn to Egypt.
That's
Because
right.
they were a large agricultural nation.
Yeah. Yeah. And they were a place to go for relief. So I'm going to say with Joseph, the second question for you, this is the final question, isn't it?
Yes.
Question of the day?
number
Okay.
4.
Why did Joseph store up the grain during the 7 years of plenty?
There we go. Back to we're talking about famine. Because in the dream that God had given him, the 7 years of plenty would be followed by 7 years of famine. And so Joseph wisely designed a system whereby they would have enough supplies from all of the abundant harvests of those 7 years to get them through
Wow.
the 7 lean years.
Your answer is far better than what I wrote down. That's very good. You know that story very well. I'm not kidding. Look, I've got
So
read.
did I redeem myself on that first question?
I've got it. Yeah, and then some. I've got this written. Why did Joseph store up the grain during the 7 years of plenty? And the answer is to bring the famine. Do you even get it?
Yes.
bring the fam in.
Fam. Yeah, I got it. I'm trying to ignore it, Danny, and you're not letting me ignore it.
You know what? I think I should just leave that as the last question. Let me just run this by you because I have a real question. That was all a setup, and
How goody.
I might have blown it. My real question is in Ephesians 6:12, Paul tells us that we do not wrestle against flesh and blood. What are we actually wrestling against?
Against the principalities and the powers in the heavenly places, against the spiritual forces of darkness and wickedness in this present age.
That's it. Ephesians 6:12. Such a great verse. It helps us to understand what we're fighting.
Yep.
It's not against other people.
If you're a Christian, you're in a fight,
Yeah.
and we need to be aware of that and behave accordingly.
And the follow-up to that is, therefore, take up the whole armor of God that you may be able to withstand in the evil day. What's the whole armor of God? It's the wisdom of God that he's given to us in all of its entirety, isn't
Yeah.
it? That take it up and you'll be protected. That's exactly what we've covered in the book of Proverbs. So, man, we've got a lot to cover, and it's going to be a great time doing it. We're going to look at different topics and subjects that apply to each one of us and that we can begin to utilize in our own lives. So as we finish today, we just ask you, as you hear this, you're living a particular day in your life. So as you go through your day today, Consider this. Wisdom isn't just knowledge, it's truth applied. It shapes our decisions, it deepens our relationships, it aligns our hearts with God and His order. So, what's the one area of life where you're craving clarity? Maybe today's the day to take that first step forward toward wisdom. Not because it's trendy, but because it is timeless, and it is found in the book of Proverbs.